In this video, we're going to look at direct variation problems, and we're going to determine how we can go ahead and solve them and create their equation when given a verbal statement like you see here. So notice first of all it says if y varies directly. So I'm going to underline that. That means that it's direct variation, which means that we can find what we call the constant of variation, which is also known as the slope, by simply taking a y value and putting it over an x value. So we got to have a y value and an x value. And that's going to be given in the first part of the sentence. So notice in this first part of the sentence, it says, it varies directly, and it says, and y is equal to 10 when x is equal to 5. So with that first part of the sentence, that is my y value. Down over here, this is my x value. And to find my constant of variation, or what we also call the slope, I am simply going to put the y value of 10 over the x value of 5. Now if I simplify this and I put it in the calculator, 5 will go into 10 two times. So my slope, or my constant of variation, is 2. Now the reason this is helpful is because it then allows us to write an equation. Now our equation is going to be in the form of y equals mx. We know what m is, we just found it, it's 2. So we're going to replace that m with that value of 2. Now sometimes it's not going to be a whole number like this. Sometimes it'll be a fraction, and it's okay to leave it as a fraction if it is. But you do want to write your equation out. So instead of y equals mx, it's y equals 2x. So now we're going to deal with the second part of the statement. And notice on this second part right here, I'm just going to highlight it. That's where it's telling you what it wants you to find. Now sometimes it's going to tell you to find y. And sometimes, like this problem to the right of it, it's going to tell you to find x. So you do need to be paying close attention to the last part of the sentence so that you make sure you substitute the correct value depending on which variable they're having you solve for. In this case, since we want to find y, we're going to be given the value of x. And I'm going to substitute this value of 70 for this variable x in my equation. So in place of x, I'm going to put a parenthesis and I'm going to put 70 in there. The slope, it remains the same. We just bring it down. I'm going to leave it out of the parentheses because it won't make a difference. It's not a fraction, so I don't need to worry about keeping it in parentheses. Just bring it down. And so y is going to be equal to 2 times that value of x, which is 70. And we can just put that in the calculator. So I can go to my calculator, and I could put 2 parentheses 70, hit enter, and it tells me it's 140. So y equals 140. And that is my answer. So when it asks me, find the value of y when x is equal to 70, well, y is going to be equal to 140 when x is 70. Now another way that you could have solved this, if you have your calculator, is you could have simply graphed the equation that we wrote, y equals 2x. So if I hit y equals, and I go ahead and put in 2x, so that's y is equal to 2x, hit graph. I don't really worry about the picture, but I'm going to hit second and graph to pull up my table, and it has every possible solution here for integers. So for instance, we said, what is y going to be equal to when x is 70? The only thing is you would have to go down all the way in your calculator until you get to 70 and find the answer. And notice here it shows that when x equals 70, that the y value is equal to 140. If somebody said, well, what about when x equals 65? Well, when x equals 65, the y value is going to be 130, and so on. Now we're going to start this one the same way. It says if y varies directly with x, and y is 30, when x is equal to 10. Okay, so I know right here that's my y value. This is my x value. So I'm going to start by finding the constant of variation. So I have m is equal to my y value, which is 30 in the numerator, over my x value of 10, which goes in the denominator. Now I know just from looking at it that 10 can go into 30 3 times. But if you're not good at memorizing your multiplication, you could go ahead and just put a fraction bar. And I would recommend always putting your answer in, your numerator on top, right? Your y value, your x value in the denominator. Hit enter, and it'll simplify it for you. If it can't be simplified, and I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say we had something like 8 over 6. This one right here, it can be simplified, but it's going to remain a fraction. And it's okay to have a fraction as your m. But in this case, we tested this already. We know that it goes in there 3 times. So I'm going to go ahead and use this integer of 3 instead of putting a fraction in my equation. Now when I create my equation, remember that it's y equals mx. And we have just found the m value. So really it's going to be y equals 3x.
Good morning.
So now that I have my equation made, I'm going to go ahead and read the second part of the sentence. And it says find x. So we're looking for x when y is equal to 90. So I'm going to change this y to a 90. Now notice in the previous problem they gave us x, so we replaced the x with a number. But on this problem it tells us when y equals 90. So we need to make sure that we're careful and we don't replace the x, but we replace the y with the value that it's equal to. And then I'm going to go ahead and just bring down the rest of this. And now we're ready to solve, and it really just becomes a one-step equation. I'll just divide out that coefficient of x on both sides. So each side is going to divide it by 3. And we end up with x is equal to, and 3 can go into 90 30 times. And I'm going to take that answer and just write that as my answer. X equals 30 when y is equal to 90. You can check this with a calculator if you like, but that's all there is to it, and that's how you solve these types of direct variation problems.